Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY and you can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob, and I am Fudefan on Instagram and on Twitter, and I have a blog at fudefan.com.
And this is, I believe, episode 61. Thank you all so much. We have a website at tokyoinklings.com where you can comment on each episode. We do have show notes for all of the episodes. They have hashtags on them, or rather just tags, I suppose, so you can find topics easily. And we also have an Instagram account at Tokyo Inklings on Instagram, where we post a little preview snippet before every episode, and you can also leave us comments there.
Yeah, and I think we will have some unusually interesting show notes this time, so it's definitely worth going to the website. And also for the previous episode, there was an interesting discussion going on there, so you can go to the website and see the comment thread.
Yes. So, we spoke, it was the spiciest episode ever, last episode.
Yeah.
And indeed, the conversation got a little, I guess, heated towards the end of the episode. And we did get I got a lot of feedback about that. Jake, I'm not sure if you got some people, sending you comments about that.
No, I didn't hear much, but I wasn't really that much taking part of the debate toward the end. I was just enjoying what was basically like a cable news show.
Like CNN.
Yeah. Angry talking heads. That was what I was enjoying that.
Yeah, so I actually happen to think that, we had a pretty good discussion. And I will say we were also pressed for time because, we had something else right after that. So, we're all trying to say our stuff. But overall, I thought that, it was a good episode. We had good content. We wouldn't publish it if we didn't think it was appropriate to publish. So we personally thought that was a very good episode. And know that people have different opinions on also the subject matter of what we discussed. We're not going to repeat the story here, so if you want to find out what we said, got to go back and listen to the last episode. But we do have some follow-up.
Yes, for sure.
So, Jacob, you and I, we've been laughing about this for 2 weeks. But
yeah, so as expected, people were discussing your article in like social media. There were threads on FPN and I think probably Facebook. I didn't see that, but also on Reddit, right? And there was a particularly interesting thread on Reddit. Someone asked, what about Woncher's glass pens? So not the glass-nibbed fountain pens that we have established are, made in Taiwan, but the more traditional glass pens, the so-called kunisaki glass pens. Is there anything going on there, or is that just like, is there a story there? And someone, I want to get the name right, I think that's Sincerely Spicy. I think that's the username. Someone named Sincerely Spicy replied and said, I did a little bit of research, and it looks like it's made in Japan. In fact, there's this online store, something called Kapik, selling it. I think it even seems to be made in Oita Prefecture, where Woncher is based, Oita Prefecture. It's quite cheap though. It's just like 5,000 yen, which is like 1/5 of Woncher's price. But that was not the interesting thing. What the interesting thing is that this Sincerely Spicy person said, it looks like, if I understand this correctly, it looks like this has something to do with a prison. But then the caveat was they didn't really understand what was going on. So we started looking into this a little bit closer, right? And we have had quite a bit of fun doing this. So we've been discussing back and forth online over the last week in particular. So there is a prison in
Wait. So before we get into the story, as you said, Sincerely Spicy did in fact comment on this Reddit post, and I originally thought that the question was about the glass dip pens, but he said no, it's about the actual glass pens.
Yeah.
And I hadn't known anything about these glass pens, and I think you neither had any experience with this, right? You didn't engage. I mean, we don't really engage with Wancher.
Right. Well, I know I've seen it on Instagram. I know people who have bought it, but I hadn't really looked too closely at the glass pen.
Yeah, exactly. So the Sincerely Spicy person says, well, I've bought one from Wancher before. And then so they didn't they bought one from Wancher, and they didn't know too much about it, so then they did that extra research and then did find this as you said, 5,000 yen or less I guess prison labor glass pen. And so they actually sent me a picture. They sent me a picture of the packaging, and the reason why we kind of got into this further research is because the packaging actually looks exactly the same as the ones that are sold by the prison, and then on the back they have a little label, the price tag, right, where they rip off the price tag, but you can still, sometimes when you rip off the price tag, the sticky part is still on the box, right? So then they stuck another like blank tag over this ripped off price tag,
Right.
And Sincerely Spicy, they wanted to see what was underneath, and they found this ripped price tag, and they did share pictures with me, and I think that's how we really got into, hey, is there something going on here? Because those pens look really, really suspiciously similar.
Yeah, so the pens look very similar. Even that little glass pillow or whatever you call it looks the same. And then, as you said, the packaging, I think Wancher's packaging has changed since then, but their original packaging looked remarkably similar, right? So we tried to understand what this, Prison Link was about. And it turns out that there's this program called CAPIC, CAPIC, which stands for Correctional Association Prison Industry Corporation, which is basically a program where inmates at prisons, they use their skills to make various goods that are sold actually to the general public. So you can buy these prison products online. There's this eCapic online store, and there are even brick and mortar stores when you can buy these products made by inmates. And the idea is that the inmates prepare for life after prison and acquire skills, and also some of the profits apparently go to some crime victim fund. So I mean, it's a good program, I guess. But what we were interested in is, of course, the question whether Wancher's glass pens are indeed the very same glass pens. So if you go to Wancher's website, they have now, it may have been even in response to your article, but they have a page dedicated to the various artisans that they say that they are working with, urushi artists in Asia and so on. But then there is one section about the glass pens, and in this section about the glass pens, they say, please note that we do not publish information and pictures of Kunisake glass artisans per their personal requests. So they don't say where they're made. However, they do say on the product page that the Kunisake glass pens are made by experienced glass masters or glass pen masters, right? So the question is how you find that link. So I asked them, as I do. I asked them
You did.
first on their Japanese Instagram account. My question was basically, are these Kunisake glass pens made in Oita prison? And there was no response. So a bit later, I asked on their English Instagram account, basically the same question with a bit more details. Are these glass pens made by inmates at this prison in Oita Prefecture, where Wancher is also located, right? And there was no response. So a few days later, I asked them on Twitter, and they didn't reply on Twitter, but then at that point, they finally responded on Instagram. So first they responded on their English account, and on the English account, they said, "Thank you for your query. No, Wancher Kunisake glass pens are not made by the mentioned craftsmen. There are several people in Oita who practice this technique for a long time, which explains similar style." Right? So they are denying it on their English account. But then, here's where it gets really weird. On their Japanese account, they say, translated, "Thank you for your questions. We cannot answer your question because we cannot reveal the identity of the artisans." So my question to them is, are these glass pens made by inmates at Oita prison? And their answer to that question is, we cannot answer it because we cannot reveal the identity. So here in Japanese, they don't deny it.
So this is the crux of my article, because I don't know if I think you saw it, right? They've since Wancher has not responded directly to the article, but they did send out a newsletter to their subscribers saying, "Oh, our pens are made by Tayashikiten." And they have a profile of Mr. Taya on the website. So they are claiming that their urushi is made in Japan, basically. So basically they're denying what I wrote on the article, which is fine. And I might be wrong, right? That might be the truth. And for sure I'll have to follow up with Tayashikiten to ask them, what is their involvement, because I do see a Wancher pen on their website, but it says on the website, it says this product was born with Wancher. It doesn't necessarily say that we made it. And there's no artist signature, which is quite common in Japan. There's no seal of authentication, which is quite common in Japan. And I think it's the surrounding stuff, right, where they claimed various things which are after the fact proven not true. So for example, their connection with Pensachi, and all of this actually works to it damages their credibility. So even if they're saying something that is true, it's more difficult to believe because of all the other things that are happening around it. So when they tell you, no, they're not made by the prisoners, that is, the credibility of that statement is then damaged by, on their Japanese website, replying to the same account, right? Yeah. They're replying to one account at Fudefan. So they're saying, "Oh, we can't answer that question." Yeah. These are not the same statements. They're not the same things. And then when you put these kind of statements out to the public, one of them might be true, right? One of the statements might be true. We don't know which one, but it raises question marks on all the other things that you want to say.
Yeah, for sure. So just to close out this thing about the glass pen, so I just to explore the option that they are not made in the prison and that there are other glass makers in Oita Prefecture in Kunisake. I did some research and I could only find online mention of 2 glass studios, glass artisans in Oita. Now, it may well be that there are, glass artists that have zero online presence. So, I mean, I realize that. But I found 2 in my research, and neither advertised, sold, or had any mention whatsoever of glass pens.
Yep.
And the last thing I would say is that I have now ordered through this hometown tax program, which I mentioned a few times. I've ordered 2 of these Copic glass pens. I'm looking forward to taking a closer look and see how similar they are. But we do need a Kunisaki glass pen to compare it to.
Yeah, so I think that's up to me, right?
Up to you, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll do that after we record today. But yeah, it's been a crazy few weeks. But yeah, we'll get them in and we'll compare the 2. But as it stands now, very suspicious. And I think, there's nothing wrong with, helping convicts reintegrate into society. I think that's actually very noble. But if it's true, right? If they are using the prisoner labor work, they're taking something that's sold for $40 and then selling it for like $250. And I do feel like that's almost, not almost, that's the exploitation of let's say cheap labor, right? And none of the profits, I'm assuming, go back to the prisoners. So
yeah, it's hard to say. As usual, it's shrouded in the mystery, and it may well be that they are right, that there is just a coincidence. It seemed to be a remarkable coincidence, but yeah, it could be a coincidence, and we'll compare them and see what we find. But about what I would say, to your point, it is, this Copic is fundamentally like a good idea, and if they are selling these Copic pens, it's a lost opportunity to make something good out of that, to say that we are helping the community, crime victims, etc. Right?
Yeah, and I do wish that it was a collaboration, if it's true. So we'll probably come back to this in a few, I guess, weeks.
Yeah, and we will also put some links in the show notes to our findings, and then the listeners can then judge for themselves and maybe help us with the research.
I personally would be quite okay if Wancher wanted to come on the podcast and do a kind of interview with us, maybe clear the air. We did that with Narwhal, and since we're discussing them, I think if they wanted or are willing to come on, I think that would be a good opportunity for us to really discover what's going on behind their businesses.
Yeah, we should.
And answer some of the mysteries.
Yeah.
So if anybody from Wancher is listening and you want to address these concerns directly, we welcome you to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
You know where to find us if you listen to the opening. Next topic. So we discussed about this Platinum 3776 Decade.
Yeah.
In I think almost a month ago, right? When they first announced it with this new nib.
Yeah. That was before the spicy episode.
Yep. All right, so back to the Decade. So we talked about a few weeks ago, and you actually went out and bought one.
Yes, so I bought one, not for myself, but a friend asked me to buy one for them. But I got a chance to look at it and try it out. And there are a few things worth mentioning. So first of all, the feed is actually the same. Maybe that's not too surprising, but the feed in the new pen is exactly the same as in like the regular non-music feed. I was kind of hoping that they would make a less brittle feed, but maybe that was not the priority. The other thing is that, as we said, the profile of the nib is different. It's more like slender. You don't have this wide shoulders as we talked about, and the net effect of that is that you get a little bit more bounce. Like when you press down a bit, the tines kind of lift up a bit. They don't separate though, so you don't get much in the way of like line variation, just a subtle little bounce, right? That's it. I think it's definitely more subtle than the soft nib, which is in itself already subtle. But I think the way they achieve it is different, right? Because this soft nib is just thinner, right? It's thinner toward the tine and the tipping, right? While this one, I just looked at it. I haven't compared like up close, but it looks like it's just as thick as the standard nib. So the effect is very subtle, which makes me think that the goal is not to change the writing experience, but rather to save some money, while at the same time being able to say that our nibs are now more bouncy, which might be beneficial. And I also remember hearing, maybe you remember this as well, I remember hearing that the soft nibs are relatively difficult to make because they're so thin.
I've not actually heard that before, but that wouldn't surprise me if there's some consistency issues with the soft nib. Anyway, the tester soft nibs are always softer because I guess they're abused at the store by potential customers.
Yeah.
What I found is that the soft nibs at stores are always like, they're like flex nibs, but then if you get one that's brand new in box, those are still kind of stiff. So exactly what you described. And then, it's interesting, you say they've kind of shaved down the shoulders a little bit to make it bouncy. So usually that gives it more spread. So I don't know what exactly they've done there, but it seems to me that they might be experimenting with I think we talked about before, reducing the amount of gold.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Yeah.
Do you think it's comparable to a pilot nib in terms of the bounciness?
No, definitely not. It's
What's the difference?
Well, a pilot soft nib is definitely more noticeably softer. Like when you press down, it lifts up more. The feeling is quite different, right? Here is so subtle that I'm not even sure I will be able to tell them apart in like a standard platinum nib and a new nib in a blind test. Right?
But what about the new platinum nib versus a regular pilot nib? Because the regular pilot nib does also have somewhat of a bounce.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, maybe they are similar. Maybe they're similar. But basically, don't buy this nib and expect like a pilot Falcon nib. It's nothing like that. So other than the nib, the other thing I wanted to mention is the ink. And I think I just briefly mentioned that last time, but I confirmed it now that it's a super sheener ink, which I think is a really interesting choice for two reasons. I mean, first of all, there was a little bit of a sheen boom even in Japan. I don't think that's really going on anymore. Not in Japan, not anywhere really. I think that's sort of over. I could be wrong. I'm not really a Numa, but I get the feeling that this is not really what people are looking for right now. And the other thing is, of course, that this is a very conservative pen. Like it's a black gathered design that's sort of reminiscent of the old like 70s gathered 3776 designs, right? So you have a very conservative pen with a super sheening ink. The combination baffles me. And
when you went out to Maruzen, they actually told you that it was very, very popular, right?
They said it was popular, and I've seen since then that it's sold out at Amioko, Yodobashi, Hachimonjiya, Kingdom Note. I think even Pento Note is sold out now. At least they're sold out of the medium nib. So this one is selling quite well, at least in Japan. I'm not sure if it's available anywhere else now, but in Japan it seems quite popular.
which is really interesting because I'm on social media nowadays, and just now are places like Nagasawa, like Shosaikan. Just now are they kind of advertising this pen, and the ones that the names that you mentioned just now. Hachimonjiya is probably the one that surprises me the most.
Yes.
I would not have expected it to sell, but probably they didn't get a lot of pens, right? They probably didn't get like a huge number of these. So it would make sense if they sold out if they only had 3, for example. But I know that Pentanota, I've been seeing a lot of ads for that. And yeah, again, I wouldn't be surprised if it sold out at a place like Shosaikan, because they're really more for the high-end kind of older customer. Whereas I would be pretty surprised if, for example, Bungabox got any and could sell out of those.
That would not surprise me. I mean, you seem to think that Bongbox is for like Numas. Whenever I go to Bongbox, which admittedly is not that often, I also see these like Wagner Oyajis there.
Yeah, but I mean, doesn't really fulfill their niche. And they have the Sailor 110th, and they haven't been able to sell that either. The Matador Red, they haven't been able to sell out of that yet. So just because it's an anniversary edition, I don't think it means people are buying from there. And yeah, I'm seeing now like Ink House Hong Kong is getting them in, Muse is getting them in. So I think globally they are becoming available now. And we'll see how popular they are outside of Japan. But it seems like they have a stronger than expected reception in Japan so far.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I agree. I wonder how much that has to do with the pen and the nib, and how much it has to do with the fact that it's a significant anniversary. Because if you compare to that Matador red pen that you mentioned, that is a limited editions, but everyone is selling limited editions nowadays. There are unlimited limited editions, right? That's not a thing anymore. You can't go chase limited editions because there's too many of them. But if you're a Platinum fan, or if you're a Pilot fan, there are a few significant anniversaries that you may be interested in, and you may want to get the pen for that particular anniversary, regardless of what kind of pen that actually is.
Yeah, and we do see that with, for example, the Pilot anniversaries, right? Like, they are generally quite conservative, but they sell it all the time. People who just collect Pilot, they just want it because it's the anniversary pen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I do still think it's weird to celebrate your 10th anniversary on the 11th year.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a story there. We have to ask someone. I'm not even sure who to ask.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe Mori-san might know. He has his Platinum contacts. Yeah.
That's true, and I should actually go out to visit Platinum sometimes. They're not far from where I live.
One more thing before I forget it. So I think I may have misunderstood in the past, or maybe this has changed, but I was under the impression that they would roll out this new nib to other Platinum pens, including the Wagner pen, this year already. But I was told now by Tomoko that is actually not the case, at least not this year's Wagner pen, or at least not the first Wagner pen this year. They won't have this new nib, but it's coming. She said it's coming next year.
And Tomoko, by the way, is the owner of Licktop.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, last point on this new nib. Given the choice, if you had the choice, obviously we don't, but if you had the choice, do you prefer the current Platinum nibs or this new one?
So this may be an unpopular opinion, but I prefer stiff nibs. I'm going to start hoarding the current nibs. I like it much better. The wide shoulders, the current one.
But you also like Pilot nibs.
But they're not really. I don't think Pilot nibs are that. Yeah, I don't like Pilot soft nibs. I don't like Pilot Falcon nibs. I think the standard Pilot nibs are stiff enough, but actually maybe this is heresy. Maybe I actually prefer the stiffness on platinum nibs. I think overall the QC on pilot nibs is better, I think, especially when it comes to tipping and so on. But I really like, the stiffness on the platinum nibs.
Yeah. Maybe you'll become a platinum fanboy.
I like the nibs. I don't like the rest of the pens. I actually just recently bought some old one with a music nib, and I put a music nib on a more interesting pen. So I think that's the way to do it.
Which pen did you put it on?
I had this Newton pen. So I don't even know what the model is. On a really nice ebonite pen. And then I think we talked about that before. But this Indian pen maker Canwrite, they make these nib units, like nibs, feeds and housing that are compatible with Jowo. They use different feeds than Jowo and obviously different nibs than Jowo, but the housing, the threading on the housing is compatible. So we bought a whole bunch of those, and the nibs, I kind of threw them away, but the feeds and the housing are perfect for this nib transplant. So that's what I use to put it on a pen that expects a Jowo nib.
Yeah, and also the feeds are actually, I think, even better, right?
Yes.
Than the original Jowo ones.
Yeah, they're quite wet if you're into that, which, if you're going to use a music nib, which is what I have in this case, you might as well have a wet nib. Oh, wet
yeah,
feed, sorry.
That's right. That's right. All right. Moving on. I don't know if you pay attention to the market overseas at all, but a few days ago, Sailor North America, which is to say Itoya Profolio, has released a new North American exclusive. Actually, it's a set of 2 pens. Have you seen this?
I did listen to this week's Pen Addict podcast. I think I know what you mean, that the Line Friends one, right? Exactly.
So the Sailor North America has come out with, I guess they're a set, right? They're a set of Pro Gear Slims, one with the line friend called Brown, and then the other one is Sally, which is the duck. And immediately we got comments on the post saying, "Hey, it's really weird. Why is this a North American exclusive?" And what do you think about it? Do you have an opinion on that?
My first thought is that maybe this is not Sailor USA, or rather like Itoya, whatever USA, producing and asking for this. Maybe this is actually Sailor Japan thinking that line is popular elsewhere, and it's deciding that let's push this one to the US. But that would make more sense to me.
Yeah. So in the comments, some people were like, "Oh my God, it's so cute, it's so nice, I love it, blah 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 blah," and some are like, "Oh, this is so tone deaf. Why is this here? It has no cultural relevance." And I do wonder which is the I guess motivator for this release, because on one hand, I do know that the Taiwanese community in the United States do heavily use line, because that's what folks in Taiwan use. So it's a very useful tool to communicate with family members back home. Obviously, the Japanese community there use line to communicate with people here. We're actually recording this podcast right now online. So there's there's some kind of community there, but nonetheless, I think it's very, very small. And Don, who is, I believe, the president of Itoya Profolio, says that the sales are pretty good right now to the retailers, and they say, "I think and hope this will be our biggest North America exclusive Sailor pen to date. Sales to retailers have been very good so far. It's only been a few hours since we introduced it, so now it's a matter of whether everybody buys from them from the retailers." Also, BT21, which is the different group, skews quite a bit, read a lot of a bit, according to surveys, younger. So we're going to focus on the Line friends for now. I think we're a bit ahead of the curve here in North America, and it's just a matter of months before everybody knows what Line is. I can't say too much more, but the wave is coming.
So how limited is this edition? How many pens in total?
It doesn't say, but I expect there should be, given what they've written, I would say at least 300 each, 400 each, maybe a bit more.
But in that case, I mean, surely there are more than enough Line users, Line fans, even in the US, for that. So
who are also fountain pen people.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, right? I'm looking at the post right now. I'm more interested in something else, which is I always complain that all of these North American exclusives have these boring standard sailor nibs. This one has a custom laser engraved little cute, was it bear and whatever the other thing is.
Yeah, it's a duck.
Duck, yeah.
But it's quite expensive. It's almost like $400 something. So
is this a full size? No, it's a slim for 400.
Yeah, it's a slim. So it is quite expensive, and I suspect that maybe Line is asking for it to be pushed in North America because of a marketing blitz that they want to do in the next few months.
But they have tried many times before. I mean, this would not be by any stretch, the first time Line is trying to get into Western markets, right? So
yeah, it's $360. Sorry, so it's okay. I don't think it's unreasonably expensive, but you still have the licensing fees that you have to pay. That probably drives the price up, and I do find it a bit strange how come how come they bring it here. But in terms of the pen itself, I agree with you. The exclusive finials and the exclusive nibs, I believe this is the first time that a US exclusive or a North American exclusive has an exclusive nib, right? Do you remember any others with exclusive nibs?
No, I don't. But to be honest, I don't really keep track of US exclusives that much, so I may have missed some. But I have complained on the podcast that they all have boring standard sailor nibs. So I'm happy to see this.
Yeah. So I think this is a good thing for the market, and I hope it does well. Actually, I hope it does really well, so we'll get more licensed characters.
Yeah.
Yep, and also maybe potentially down the line, Yoseka's third pen can have a exclusive engraving.
You saw they replied to our podcast and they told us that they tried, but it wasn't possible this time. But maybe next time.
Yeah, so hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yes.
Another thing that I saw on the internet, which is not available to us, is the third of the Manyo series.
Yeah, that's what you sent on Instagram, right? Let me bring it up right now.
Yeah, so I shared with you a story by Muse Pens, and I guess people won't be able to see the story by the time the podcast comes out, but there are 4 new inks in the Manyo series that we can see so far. Ayame, Hinoki, Koke, and Fuji.
Yeah.
And on the labels, it specifically says dual shading. And I was a bit taken aback by this because we've been to see Ishimaru-san a few times, and often we ask him, hey, we want we want sheening, or we want this color shifting properties.
Yeah.
And I believe he told the both of us, right? He said, don't ask me for the color shifting properties. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I asked for that, and he said, "I have no idea how to do that. It's just a happy accident." But then he made me a chroma shading ink.
Yeah, and it seems like they're really nailing the color shifting properties with these four inks. I mean, they look very, very good. Especially for me, the Ayame looks very, very nice.
So they will be available at Ancora.
Ancora, yeah. But even the recent release, the ones that change colors based on the paper, those are also color shifting inks too. So anyway, it's interesting. Maybe they've cracked the formula, but I think they've got something going on there. You know, they've got something good going on, and if they can continue this and really take a spot for themselves, you know, they're one of the only really large ink makers that do advertise this property. I think the other makers that, or at least the ones that are really known for it, are like Troublemaker inks, who, you know, just two blokes out of their kitchen, and also like Kaze inks from China, but those are not very easy to find at all. So yeah, they'll be one of the only ones that do this, and yeah, I think it's pretty exciting.
So related to that, one thing you just said now is that these Urameku inks, they look different on different papers. Going back to what we talked about before with, you know, the platinum ink and what is trend in Japan. One thing that seems to be trendy right now is inks that not only are chroma shading but look different on different papers. I think Tone and Dims have had a few inks like that recently, and they're all over Instagram. So I think that if there is a trend right now among the Inumas in Japan, I think that might be it, or at least one of the trends.
It's actually so I've said on the podcast I don't really like that trend, but it's funny because then it incentivizes users to use more of the inks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also one reason why bank paper has become so popular. It's not that ink necessarily looks quote unquote better, whatever, however you define better, but it always looks significant. Many inks, I should say, look significantly different on bank paper than on most other papers.
Yeah. Speaking of ink, we mentioned the return of this event the other day, but Ink has officially started, Jacob. Did you manage to go down and check it out?
I am going Sunday morning. I already got a report from Alessa. She went, I think, Wednesday and bought... I think she is preparing a whole video right now. She, to no one's surprise, bought like a big bag full of ink.
Yeah, she texted me too, and she said she went and just spent so much money. But I heard that this green ink, which I believe is a Romeo ink, right? Is very, very popular, and they're only limiting it to one per person.
That's usually a good way to sell a lot of inks. That's how you know you need to buy one.
Yeah, I don't really actually know too much about these Romeo inks, but they do look very nice. You said you've gotten a few Romeo inks before. You said you know who makes them, right?
No, so I've been to Itoya and Yokohama a few times, and that's where you normally buy this Romeo or these cocktail inks, and they have this cocktail bar, and you can't just blend whatever you want. Instead, you have these like recipes, right? You say you want this number 37 Shanghai, and then they blend it for you on the spot, and it takes like 5 minutes, and they give you a bottle. But I've asked them like twice, where's the ink from? What is the maker? Who makes these inks? And they won't tell me. They even told me this is a secret.
Yeah. But the event looks very popular. I think all the good slots, the quote unquote good slots, got sold out really quickly. So I'll be interested to hearing what you have to say on Sunday when you come back from the event.
So you're not going then?
I don't want to tempt myself. I've got too much ink. Got like several hundred bottles of ink, so I just don't want to go and be like, oh, there's an ink that I can buy.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, even though I've been selling a lot of inks, I still have too many. So I usually, I buy them, I do some swatches, and I do some Instagram posts, and then I just like sell them at like fire sale prices on Mercari, like a whole like big box full of inks for like basically the cost of shipping.
Yeah, I mean, and also I do get requests for, people asking me, "Hey, can you go and get this ink for me?" And I always tell them, not really, because the cost of shipping inks is just way too high, right? You're spending like $40 on a, $30 bottle of ink.
Yeah, it's usually even more than that. So yeah, we talked before about how Japan Post has increased prices recently. So now EMS to US, I think it starts at 4,000, but usually if you have one or two ink bottles, it easily goes up to like 6,000 yen. So that's a lot of shipping to pay for one or two bottles of ink.
Yeah. Last thing, before we close out the podcast, are you subscribed to the Hachimonjiya newsletters?
Yeah, I don't know when I subscribe, but I get usually every Friday there's this email about whatever they're going to release in the weekend, and there was a new glass pen, right, this weekend.
There was a new glass pen, but I'm guessing you didn't scroll down.
No, I just I saw the glass pen and deleted it, so it sounds like I missed something then.
They're releasing a new fountain pen, which normally wouldn't make me blink twice. But Hachimonjiya is very well known for, I think, the pastel colors. I think that's what really made them super, super popular, especially in the West as well as Japan. It started with like these jellyfish pen, and then they had the amethyst rime. They had the Ginzan Snow Gray, and then they had the Kubozakura.
Yeah.
And the Kubozakura was actually released, I think, almost 2 years ago now. So it's been quite a while since they've released a new fountain pen. And those are always super, super popular. They get sold out within like just absolute. It's like minutes, it's maybe even seconds. If you don't get it in like the first 5-6 seconds, you're gone. And so they're always really in demand. This time, they're going to be releasing a new pen, which is actually a little bit of a deviation from what they've released before. I'm not quite sure how I am supposed to read this kanji. Maybe it's Tsukiyama Blue Moon. I'm not really quite sure what the actual way to read it is, but let's just say it's Tsukiyama Blue Moon. This pen is actually not pastel at all. It's actually very, very deeply saturated. It's a blue saturated pen with some translucency in the cap, and I think the section and the finials.
But also some nice glitter or sparkles going on there. Right?
Yeah. On the body, they have a lot of glitter, like micro glitter particles embedded throughout the body. So they're saying that it's the body is PMMA resin with transparent lame particles, glitter particles in the dark blue.
I think, so to me, the most interesting part of this release, I mean, you sent me the photos now, is the price. I mean, I would have expected another like 20,000 yen given how other shops are pricing their pens, especially the most recent releases. I mean, this is significantly cheaper than that the US Slims that we talked about just before. The line pens, right? This is, I mean, 2 years ago we would have complained that this is outrageous price, right? But by 2022 standards, this is this is affordable for a limited edition Pro Gear.
Well, even at the strongest yen rates, right? This is less than the exclusive that Sailor North America just released. Right. Yeah. And it's a handsome pen. It's definitely a departure from what they've been doing. And I wonder if this means that we're going to have a new series. So they've done the pastel stuff. We're going to have a new series of pens. I hope so.
As you said, I think Hachimonjiya has some of the most popular limited edition Pro Gears. They have really nailed these, the translucency and the colors. I mean, they do this better than almost anyone. So usually whatever they do, it's going to be hits.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to get some of these in time for the DC Pen Show, but these look pretty handsome. They look pretty handsome. They look more, I almost want to say they look a bit more masculine than what they've traditionally released, but maybe that's a good thing.
Well, if they're sold out of their Oyaji Decade pens, then maybe they have customers that will buy these as well.
Yeah, so really looking forward to the reception on this pen. I wonder if it's gonna be received well. I hope so, and I hope that we get a new release or a new series from Hachimonjiya, which is based around these glittering bodies, because the last series didn't have glitter particles. So we'll see. And Quay will be happy.
Well, she wouldn't approve of the finials.
Why not?
They're not white socks.
Yeah, but they have glitter particles in them.
Yeah, we need to get her back on the podcast for her opinion on this pen.
She should be awake now, so I'm going to send her some photos.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I think that's all we have for today. Anything that you wanna say before we kind of round out the episode?
Just going back to the main topic, this Kunisaki glass pen, I would encourage people to look at the show notes and follow the links and tell us whether we are right or wrong and what your opinion is on this.
Yeah, and I will also send you some of the pictures that Sincerely Spicy has sent to me, so that we can upload those on the show notes as well.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, and so that's pretty much been the episode. Thank you all so very much for listening. Again, you can find us on our website at tokyoinklings.com. We have an Instagram account now at tokyoinklings. And my name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, at TikTok as well, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob, and I'm a Fudo fan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at fudofan.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.